Last part of our review for Chapter 8 is going to focus on a little bit more of the story problem piece, as well as figuring out sequences and kind of using the smaller kind of story problems. So let's take a look at our next problem. On 16, they want you to find the balance of the current account. Now, in order to be able to use this, we are actually going to use that generic exponent formula that we've been doing. Now, in our problem, it tells us that our beginning amount is $2,400 and that you earn 2% interest. Now, remember, interest is something that's an additional amount. So this is one that's going to be an increase. So we take our 100 and add our 2%, get 102%. And if I move my decimal, the 2 decimal places like we've done on the other ones, that would give me 1.02. It's going to be this value that goes in here for B. Now there's 2 things up here, annually and 7 years. First of all, if it's annually, then that means it happens once a year for 7 years. So that means it's going to happen 7 times, and 7 is going to have to go in for x. So y equals 2,400 parentheses 1.02 raised to the 7th. Okay, let me just get rid of that little edge there. Makes it almost look like it's a 6 and not a 0. Okay, so if I plug this in my calculator, I have 2,400 times 1.02 raised to the 7th. I'm going to end up with 2756.845602. Now, our problem with this is that we can't have anything more than 2 decimals if we're talking about money. So we're going to look at the number that comes after it. That number is 5 or greater. So that means we're going to round up. So it'll be $2,756.85. And that's going to be our final answer. Which means if I was to look up here on 16, then my answer would be A. Okay, let's take a look at our next one. On our next one, this is going to be one of those problems where we're going to have to read and kind of underline our facts, kind of like a talking to the text. So in this one, the boat cost $15,500 and it decreases by 10% per year. And then if we look at this, you can also see that they want to know what it's going to be after 5 years. So we've got a lot of information. So in this one, we're going to start out with our y equals a times b to the x. Now a is our 15,500. To do b, remember, this is a decrease problem, so we're going to take our 100 and subtract that 10% away, which is 90%. And then this has to go 2 decimal places, so 0.90. That's going to go in for B. And it wants to know what it is after 5 years. So y equals 15,500 times 0.90 raised to the 5th. So if I go through and start calculating my values, I end up with 9,152.595. Now I'll tell you, in looking at this one, zero's missing there. I can already tell that right now because it's money, which means 2 decimal places here, which means it should be $9,152.60, which means that A is going to be the answer. Okay, our next problem. Okay, now this is one where they want you to find the first, fourth, and eighth term. Now just a reminder, if it's the first term, then that means n equals 1. If it's the fourth term, it's going to be n equals 4. And if it's the eighth term, it'll be n equals 8. So if I were looking at this, I'm going to take my whole equation, and wherever there's an n, I'm going to put a 1 in there. And then in the next one, I'm going to put a 4 in there. And then on the last one, I'm going to put an 8 in there. So in this one, if I go through to solve each one of these, this is just going to end up being 0. And 2 to the 0 is just going to end up being 1. So this first one is going to end up being -2. Now, by knowing just that that is the first term, if I look at all of these for my answers, this isn't the right first term, this isn't the right first term, and this isn't. So I'm thinking it's got to be C. It's the only one with -2. Let's continue to look to see if that works out. So in this one, 4 minus 1 is 3. So -2 times 2 raised to the third is -16. This one, 8 minus 1 is 7. So -2 times 2 raised to the seventh. -256. So that means these values right here would be the first, the fourth, and the eighth term, and that matches these right here. Okay, next problem. Getting near the end, only 2 more left here. So in this problem, this is again one of those ones where we're going to read. So it says, suppose a population of 250 crickets doubles in size every 6 months. How many crickets will there be after 2 years? So I'm going to set up this generic equation. My starting value is 250. And if it doubles every time, then that means this B value is going to have to be 2. Let me move this down just a little bit here. Oh, crud. I'm going to erase this then and rewrite it just to move it down a little bit. Okay, and my y equals. Now this one says it's going to double every 6 months, so they want to look at it for 2 years. So after 6 months it doubles, another 6 months it doubles. That would be a year. Another 6 months it doubles, and then another 6 months that it doubles. So this grouping of 6 months is what it would be for 2 years. And that means it happens 4 times. That means that there's 4 in this spot. So 250 times 2 raised to the fourth is going to give us 4,000. That means that A is going to be our answer in 19. Okay, last one. And this one I actually think is one of the easiest ones that's on there. Identify the initial amount A and the growth factor B in an exponential function. So they're saying if you look at this kind of setup, in this equation, which one's going to be in the A spot? So if we look up here at this whole equation, 640 is going to be in the A spot. 4.3 is going to be in the B spot. So when they're looking at this list, they want you to be able to list the A value first and then the B value, because that's how they mention it in the problem. So the one that would be in the right order would be B.